Hello, I'm Bev Turner. This is GBN Originals. Now, today I am so excited to talk to this young man because I remember this story. And at the time when I saw the footage that I'm about to play you, my heart sang in January 2021 to see a group of young people doing, frankly, what young people should do. Because this was the start of the third and longest lockdown in England. It was in the depths of winter. Millions of healthy young people had been prevented from seeing friends, from forming relationships, from going to colleges and schools and jobs. We locked up those who should be the most free. The snow came down and this happened. Now, that controversial Snowball fight, which was sort of treated as though it was the most disrespectful, the most dangerous event that this country had ever seen, was thanks to this man that I'm going to talk to now. This is Xen Watts. And Xen, I don't know whether you watched footage of that fight back now and feel that it was a dangerous thing to do, because that Snowball fight resulted in you getting a £10,000 fine. Just tell our audience what happened back then.
I sort of look back at it now, the footage. It looks quite fun, I think.
It was fun, clearly.
And honestly, it was for months of sort of literally being detained. You know, I was at Leeds Conservatoire, the music college in Leeds, for months of all of the unis and all of the students being detained in the student area, Hyde Park, not being able to leave their bubbles. And that's an okay thing for people who live in 12, people houses, as you do in like second, third year. But there are some people living by themselves, some people living in 2 or 3, not being able to leave and socialize. And then, I put on this event. I just posted about the event on Facebook, basically. It snowed the night before, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be funny if it was purely for a joke. I posted it on the meme student page. It was purely a joke. Just wouldn't it be funny if the two uni of the Polytechnic had a big, massive sort of Lord of the Rings style battle at the park, snowball fight. And then I woke up the next day and just looked out the window because I live near the park and saw that hundreds of people were there. I was like, oh wow. But I really didn't expect it to be like that. But another thing is every time it does snow in Hyde Park, people have a massive snowball fight. It's just a known thing. So when my event that I posted was, made to be the reason why people were there, and then I was blamed for that, that was a bit annoying.
So take us through what happened. So you all go down, this massive snowball fight is there. People who, as you say, may not have had contact with another human being for weeks on end are doing what young people should all be doing. You're getting exercise, you're getting fresh air, you're connecting, you're laughing, you're joking. You all go home, presumably. And then what happens? Did you get a knock on the door?
I got several over the course of a few days. First one, I wasn't home. My housemate tells me that there's police have come to the door. I was like, oh, all right. That doesn't sound good. Second time, they knocked on the door. It was just me home. I ignored them. I just looked out at police. And then the third time, my housemate just lets them in because he doesn't really know. He's just like, the police are there. They're quite scary. There's 3 of them just for this one house call. They barged straight into my room, uninvited by me, and say, are you Mr. Watts? I was like, yeah, I'm not going to lie. And then they say, we want to come down to the station. I was like, okay, am I under arrest? Have I committed a crime? They don't answer that. They just say, we'd just like to come down to the station. I was like, okay, do I have to? It's like, you don't have to, but if you don't, we're going to make you eventually. I was like, okay, what kind of law is this? What? They just wouldn't answer. They just like, we'd advise you to come down at 7 p.m. tomorrow. And then they just left. So I was like, okay, I'm obviously going to go down. Didn't think too much of it.
And were you thinking,
because again,
were you then thinking, did you know then what it might be related to? Or were you thinking, what have I done? Or like, because most people, if you get a knock on the door by the police officer, they're normally bringing you bad news. It can be really scary.
I mean, sending 3 police officers fully uniformed they then just barged through straight to my door when I'm just sat in my bed, and I'm just like, okay. It was scary, but then also as well, I still didn't really see the gravity or the perceived gravity. I mean, I knew that it was I knew I was in trouble slightly because the night before there was across a lot of media platforms, news platforms, the story of the Snowball fight.
Right.
So I feel that someone higher up in the police department was just going, we need a scapegoat. I mean, events like this can't happen, I guess. So yeah, I was really nervous on the day when I went down. Because I've never broken the law, I've never done anything wrong.
And you were studying at the music college, you said, in Leeds. And so what did you do? Did you take anybody with you, like a family member or a friend or anybody when you went to the police station?
I just got a taxi down to the station, walked through the main door, told them, they asked me to wait for a bit. Then they brought me into a room. There was a lawyer sat there. I was like, oh, Jesus. And then they gave me a few minutes alone with this lawyer person who I never met. And he sort of just explained, just let them talk, try not to say anything too incriminating. I was like, what? This is all the legal training I'm going to get beforehand. And then, we had this really, really nasty, uncomfortable interview with the two officers that conducted it. Where they not only tried to antagonize me, incriminate me, but also blame me for deaths of thousands of people around the country.
Just give us that detail, Xen, because didn't they say to you about something about a number of people who had died of COVID since your Snowball fight? Yeah.
Like, so nationally, they it was like, do you know in the business meetings where someone writes down a figure and they slide it across the table when you look? That's what they did. He wrote down like 3,000 or so people. Or he wrote down the number 3,000, slid it across the table and said, Mr. Watts, do you know what this number means? And I was like, no. Like, this is the number of people that since your Snowball fight have died from COVID-19. How does that make you feel? And yeah, I got quite upset at that moment just because, A, that's a national number of deaths. B, on the event that I made, I literally said, this can count as your 15 minutes a day of exercise in a public area. Everyone wear your gloves and masks, socially distance, which it pretty much was, and then, just to be blamed for deaths of people. It's like, is it murder? Are you accusing me of murder here? Are you implying manslaughter? Like, it wasn't fair, I don't think, at all.
Xen,
not a nice way to do it. I think they wanted me to, sorry.
I can see it in your body language even now. Like, that you're trying to excuse, I don't mean excuse, but you're trying to explain it because obviously for 4 years you've been having to maybe tell this story. How often do you tell this story, by the way?
Not so much in the last couple of years, because it has been sorted as best as it could have been.
But before you go on, I just want to say, you did nothing wrong. You did nothing wrong. Not one person died because of your Snowball fight. And actually, the chances are that not one of those 3,000 people died because of what they might have called this COVID virus. But anyway, I just wanted to say that to you in a little slightly motherly moments towards you there.
Thank you.
Because you can see it in your body language. You can see it in your breathing. You can see it in your shoulders. No one knows more about this topic than I do. So trust me, I'm right. Now listen. So tell us what happens then. So you sit in the police station, and did they charge you on the spot with something? What happened then?
It was like when the jury goes to deliberate after a trial, and then they come back with the conviction. So they sort of just said, okay, we're just going to discuss this. I instantly knew in my head that they had no intention of doing anything else than giving me a fine, because they were in the other room for 2 minutes and then they came out and said, yes, we're going to issue with the fixed penalty notice, I think it was called, of £10,000. And then they just sort of was like, good day, Mr. Watts, and closed the door and then left. So I was like, okay, cool. And then the lawyer sort of just said to me, stay in touch. All right, off you go.
So in a way, they built it up so much that you thought you might be arrested and you might be charged. You might end up going through this court process. So in fact, when they then said, we're just going to give you a fixed penalty notice, in a way that was a sense of relief because you weren't going to prison, right? Because they'd built up the drama so much. But you were still...
Well, I knew that it wasn't sorry to interrupt.
No, carry on.
Yeah, so a couple of people had been given like small fines, like in the Leeds student area, just for having like a dinner party or just for having mates over to watch Netflix. they've been given fines for that, which is just, ridiculous. We're like 19, 20 years old. So yeah, I knew it was never going to go to prison. So it was almost not real in my head. Even as I left the police station, I was like, oh, that's a bit of an awful experience, but oh well, move on. And then I started getting the letters, the official sort of fine letters through my through the door,
saying you need to pay £10,000. You need to pay £10,000. And are you a man of significant means, Xen? Was it that you could have just drawn £10,000 out of your savings account or taken it from your offshore bank account and just paid this bill?
Yeah, I just need to make a few calls. No, not at all. No, I don't have this. I didn't have the spare sort of 10 grand at the time. In my final year of uni, in a lot of debt from that. And just know what kind of sort of kid my age studying does have that. And it's like, even if I could, draw on other people to sort of help out, I wouldn't want to. I disagreed with it like wholeheartedly.
So from a point of principle, you just said, no, I'm not going to pay this. This is ridiculous. I'm being fined for something, a ludicrous lockdown rule. And you just thought, what? You're just going to stick, kind of dig your heels in and hope it goes away.
Yeah, because I was seeing the occasional sort of online story of fines being, rescinded, people not having to pay them. So I just assumed it would all blow over because nothing like this had ever happened. I didn't know how to deal with something like this. So and then they named me in the press. Some stories came out that named me. And another person who was not involved at all. I really feel bad for this other person because all he did was like share my post on the meme page about it. But I think the more people they could scapegoat, the better they would look. So he was also given the fixed penalty fine. But then, yeah, I sort of assumed it would all blow over. But then they named sort of me. And then... Yeah,
and you didn't give them any permission. You didn't give them any permission to put your name in the paper.
No, not at all. No, I spoke to people months later afterwards, but that was after it all come up. And then my university contacted me, saying I'd need to come in for like a hearing about whether it was appropriate for me to study there anymore in like my final year so there was no legal process. It was all just like, and then all of a sudden my university's against me. The police have been at my door. They know where I live. They're sending me these letters. Not just one. Like it was every 2 weeks, I'd be getting a fresh one saying, you have this amount of time, you have this amount of time. And it was just too much stress to deal with at the time. I was just not dealing with it, not telling people, I just really thought it would blow over. And then I completed the year, moved back to Manchester. I moved back home for a little bit. And then I applied for a passport because I'd lost my passport. And within 2 weeks of me applying for a passport, obviously putting my new address on the government system, I got the fine again through, my family home door. And then it was a few months after that, the bailiffy people came to at first they were saying that I need to contact certain courts to appeal because I really wanted to appeal. When I contacted the Leeds court, they transferred the case to the Bradford courts.
Yeah.
And just could not get in touch with anybody. And then they sent people over to the house to sort of take things, or to pay for the fine, basically. So I had to sort it out.
And so you've eventually had to pay this £10,000 off. How much every month have you been paying off to get rid of the debt?
So it was reduced. So I think what they do is, if it's not like a criminal thing, they can sell the debt to a debt collection agency, so that it's reduced. So reduced to 6,000. Which still is a ridiculous amount of money. And then, yes, for about 3 years after that, I was paying a few £100 a month back.
And have you cleared that debt now?
Yeah, it's gone.
I wish I'd known you at the time. I wish I'd known you about this at the time, because I wish I'd been more familiar with your story, because I remember it. I remember the Snowball fight, but I didn't really understand what you were going through personally. I wish I'd known. I'd have done a crowdfund for you, Xen, and got that. We'd have raised that money for the number of freedom fighters that would have actually, our hearts would have broken for you, to be honest. What I hear when you're telling this story is a sequence of adults who should have been protecting you. How old were you at the time?
22, 21.
So you were 21. Yeah. I mean, but you're at university, you're 21, 22, you're still a young person, and you sat there with police officers and judges and bailiffs who are probably in their 40s and their 50s. And at what point did nobody say, hang on a minute, this is not acceptable that we're doing this to this young kid with his whole life ahead of him? And
at the same time, you have the people in power that I look up to in a sense of they should be setting the standard while they're setting the rules, breaking the rules, not being punished as much as myself.
You mean Boris
It's almost
Johnson?
like every single... Yeah. And,
Rishi Sunak,
whoever else
Boris
partying with
Johnson,
him.
all of the
them partying
politicians, Matt Hancock snogging his girlfriend in the House of Commons. You know, all these guys. Do you remember how much Boris Johnson's fine was for Partygate?
Wasn't it £50 or something?
50
Was
quid.
It 50 quid.
Because they weren't frightened of it in the same way that the public were encouraged to be frightened of it. How does it leave you? Yeah, how does it leave you feeling now?
Sort of like the whole system of the judicial and political system is like a farce or like a smokescreen, like just not real. Like, you know, you'd expect, just a lack of faith in the system and support networks at my uni, by the police, by the judges, by the politicians. So if you can't rely in modern Western society on these four pillars that are meant to keep us upstanding, then, you know, who can you rely on, and what, you know? It just, I felt let down at every single level, unsupported at every single level, ostracized and judged harshly at every single level, and punished finally by everyone involved, really. Unfairly
Punished for a virus with an infection fatality rate of 0.09% for your generation, no threat.
Yeah, when you look at the numbers whatsoever. Of the people that were sort of, that had no underlying conditions, that were under 40 or 60, and the mortality rate, it's a bit, they blew it out of proportion, I think. Well,
that is the understatement. And let me tell you, these powers that be that you've just been talking about, they are so lucky that you are the character that you are, which is fundamentally a good person who probably does as they're told, like a rule obeyer. I would say you, forgive me, but I'm just assuming you're not a natural rule breaker, are you? And also that you've kind of taken it on the chin, and that you haven't caused more of a fuss, and that you aren't out there with placards, and you aren't out there, you know, putting through politicians' windows to make yourself heard. Like, they are fortunate that they got you, mild-mannered Xen Watts, who may go on to be a world-famous musician, but has taken this outrageous, disgusting, shameful punishment quietly.
Honestly, if I had more faith in the system, I might have tried to kick up more of a fuss, but it's almost like, if the people at the top who did the exact same thing as me, possibly worse, probably worse, definitely worse, if they're getting as little as barely a slap on the wrist and a 50 quid fine, and then I sort of pipe up, and I just didn't, honestly, I'd lost complete faith in all levels of the system. So I just thought, I really almost regret not taking it on the chin, as you say, because maybe I could have done something at the time. But again, it's like, the
system is powerful. That system is designed to shut you up. It's designed to scare you, to oppress you, to make you do as you're told, to serve you as an example. You weren't going to do as you were told. Have you learned nothing from the whole thing? Have you learned nothing? You're meant to do as you were told. Xen, listen, we wish you all the best here from GB News and from GBN Originals, because we need people who, when the law is ridiculous, can stand up and say, there's a mistake been made here. And I think in your case, it is an enormous mistake. And I have an immense sense of injustice on your behalf. But trust me,
really
as you get
that.
older and you become an adult, I'm being your mother again here, aren't I? The world is going to need people like you who organise snowball fights when the rest of us need to get out and have some fun. So
can I just say as well, with all the negative things that I did receive, I got hundreds of messages from people I didn't know on social media just saying, thank you so much. Thank you, that we needed that. You know, I was so depressed. I needed something. So hopefully there will be more people like me that can just provide a little bit of.
Yeah. Well, wear it as a badge of honour, Xen. Wear it as a badge of honour. The man who
I'll do my
organised
best.
Who organised the happiest day in January 2021. I and GB News Originals salute you.
Thank you very much.